Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us for Finding Common Ground in Cybersecurity Certifications Edition. I am joined by the wonderful bearded Josh Copeland here, who many of you may know. If you're not connected with him, get connected with him. He is the king of unpopular opinions and always given great advice on his feed. So, Josh, I wanted to ask you real quick. You're doing something interesting in October. Tell me a little bit about that.
So, you know, the cybersecurity community as a whole is really big at giving back to, not only our own community, but to the communities at large. And I got linked up with the American Cancer Society this year to support their Real Men Wear Pink, thus the pink shirt. With that, I kind of got challenged by my daughters they wanted to know what they could do to get dad to dye their beard pink. So I told them, raise a lot of money for a charity. And they linked up with the American Cancer Society, and we set some goals. First goal was like $2,000 for me to, do a temporary dye of my beard pink. Next goal was like 4,000 to permanently dye my beard pink for the month of October. Then there's a $6,000 and $10,000 goal to dye my eyebrows either temporarily or permanently pink as well. As of yesterday, we have hit the $4,000 goal. So on 1 October, I will be dyeing my beard pink as part of the challenge to pay up my part, raise some great money for the American Cancer Society, cancer research. They do amazing things for folks that have cancer that are donating for research, treatment, give them supplies, get them to and from appointments. Pretty awesome.
That is pretty awesome. Well, I was just talking to you a little bit before this, and I'm willing to join you in this venture. So I will connect with you. We'll drop some links on some fundraising items as well, and just make this a multiple beards being pink thing. So I'm gonna connect with you, and we'll drop some resources for everybody else if you want to join us. No beard is required, but we'll hopefully share a little bit more of that love. So thanks for sharing that, Josh. I think that's really awesome, and awesome on your daughters getting your involvement. That's really great to hear. Well, everyone joining, we are talking about certifications, IT, cybersecurity, various aspects, what it means for work, what it means for education, what it means for a lot of different aspects of the cybersecurity world. If you have a question, please drop it in the chat. Let us know. Josh and I both have been in the cybersecurity industry for quite a while, been in hiring positions, looked at various resumes, and we both, full disclosure, have multiple certifications ourselves. So we know a little bit about the process, but today we are particularly talking about what really is the good entry level and next stage and phases in getting certified, what's the value, and potentially having different opinions about it. So we'll open up with my initial kind of post that kind of kicked this off. I recommend for those coming into cybersecurity and looking to break into the industry in different ways to target a cloud-based certification like AWS or Azure, fundamentals, cloud practitioner, those real introduction to cloud certifications as a method of breaking into cybersecurity. And so that's kind of what started this whole conversation back and forth of what we've got. But I'll start with my initial question for you, Josh, as a hiring manager. What makes a candidate qualified for an entry level position? Let's talk real entry level, like SOC analyst or something like that. What do you think makes a person qualified?
So I always look at it from a couple different perspectives. First and foremost is, what am I contractually obligated to have as my competency level? If I'm doing state or federal contracting, I may have a hard.
Oh no, Josh. We lost Josh there for a minute. I'm sure he'll come back and we'll pick this right back up. But until then, wanted to again just say thanks for joining. And this is definitely something that's community led. If you are curious about certifications, about the industry, about anything, drop it in the chat, and you've got two great people here that can discuss your question and various elements here. So fire away if you got it. And I'm also always happy to add anybody else to these conversations going forward. I normally do some form of finding common ground in cybersecurity every other week. So if you would like to sit down and have a chat with me in front of a live audience, we'll happily have you here. I'm happy to host, and you can pick the topic. I can pick the topic. I always, always love having community members join me for conversation. Can we consider certification towards years required? And I'm going to butcher this. Adlin, I believe that's how you say that. So certifications towards years required. That is an interesting question. I'm not sure I fully understand the scope of the question, but happy to go where I think it is. And sorry, getting another ping here. So, okay. What we've got really when talking about the years required for various certifications, there are a couple of the industry standard bigger certifications like CISSP or the CISA, CISM. And I just got a message from poor Josh that the power went out. So he's got to enable his BCP plan there. And I'm sure he'll join us in a moment. So back to years required. Most of those more advanced certifications come with a requirement that there be some level of education or years of experience, and other elements as well. So there's a couple ways to get through the certification process, but they also require that you be validated by somebody else who already has those certifications. So those are big wig items that I don't necessarily recommend unless you are in a position of leadership management and looking to get into that area. So CISP or CISA is really helpful in the consulting side of things, and a great one to get after. So looks like Josh will be joining us back here for just a minute, and we'll get going. The best thing that I can say when looking at different applications and job applications that require certifications or list certifications in them is to focus more so on the skill sets in those certifications and highlighting where you possess those skills in your resume, even if you don't have the certification. So like the CISSP has multiple domains that I can't remember off the top of my head, but if you don't possess it, highlight those domains and where you are at in terms of your skill set that can contribute or does cover those various domains. Lot of good questions. I am going to have to troubleshoot real fast with Josh. He said he's on, but I don't see him. 1 second. Well, Josh, I don't see you. Um, I'm going to continue to chat here. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, that short little cutout there. Hopefully, we're back on. Um, and let's get back into some of these chat items. I had to refresh my page, so I'm going to go back over to my LinkedIn and grab some of these great questions that you've got. Ah, Josh is back. It finally worked. How are you?
Well, a little bit better now that the power's back on.
I was floundering without you here. Well, thank you. Lots of great questions in the chat. Keep them coming. Josh, obviously, you cut off right at the beginning there of what makes a good entry level candidate and what do you look for. So, if you want to pick back up, I'd love to hear what you have to say.
So, as I was saying, kind of first thing I look at is what I'm contractually obligated to provide. If you're dealing with contracts with federal government, with state government, they have labor category requirements that might dictate that you have to have a 2-year degree, 4-year degree. You have to have a specific certification. You have to meet a table of certifications of if you're this kind of role, you must have verily this certification. Those that have dealt with DoD are very familiar with the 8570, 8140 matrix chart. A lot of other federal agencies as well as state agencies kind of picked up on that, setting a baseline. Um, so that's kind of where I start. Then from there, I look at what is the person actually doing? What skills and certifications might be best aligned with the actual work they're doing? So if I'm hiring an entry level SOC person, you know, yeah, I'm probably going to look for them to have, a baseline security certification, whether it be Security Plus or IC Squares, SSCP, something along that lines. But I'm also going to look and say, well, do you have, Splunk Power User or the Elastic certification or a Devo certification, something that's kind of platform specific where you've gone through and done, the Range Force Community Edition, SOC program or Cyber SOC specific program. Give me something that shows that the thing that we're trying to get you into a little bit more than just somebody off the street. So that's kind of where I look at that. For entry level, I always like to set the bar as low as reasonably possible. Um, just because it's entry level. You shouldn't have to know a whole lot to come into entry level. There's an expectation of some baseline knowledge, and I like to keep it there. I hate seeing those ads that say, SOC analyst requires a CISP 5 years experience and a master's degree. Are you nuts?
Yeah.
That's crazy. This is a job that we want somebody that's new, fresh, and has a different perspective. I don't want somebody that's spent $150,000 in education to come in as a SOC analyst.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting aspect being a hiring manager of the multiple considerations you've got to look at when evaluating a position and potentially bringing somebody else on. Because most of the time, especially in security, you've had to fight tooth and nail just to get that position to be available and funded and you know supported. So now that you're in that position of offering the job to someone, you're putting yourself on the line of like, I had to work really hard to get this here, and I've got to make sure that whoever I put here is successful in this role, not only for their sake, but for my sake and for other sakes as well. Um, that is one of the biggest challenges when it comes to evaluating potential candidates. Is it's not just the candidate, it's the role, and it's the team, and it's you yourself as manager, and what you're able to commit. I know in my experience I have had a lot of um, not necessarily newbies, but a lot of people with skills that translate pretty easily into whatever role they're in, and that required a lot of investment in training. And so those certifications can remove that investment requirement from me. And that can be why they're so attractive to hiring managers, is because it potentially possesses a shorter runway, so to speak, to getting your SOC analyst or whoever you're bringing in off the ground. That's why you see it out there and you see it recommended, and why almost everybody who's trying to break in certifications is just where it starts. And that's because as hiring managers, it saves some time on your initial onboarding and getting ramped up, and just knowing how to play in the space a little bit. And so that's why it can be such an important element. And for me in particular, I love to take opportunities like that for internal team members, to invest in them before transitioning. So that's one of my little hacks of how to uh, break in without necessarily having the certification. Because if you already work in a different department, say IT or HR or whatever, and if you're in the same facility and um, company, it is a lot easier for me to take time invested in training somebody that's already inside the company, and they can become more attractive without a certification because they're an internal hire as well. So that's just a little tidbit there of, you can start with where you're currently at if you happen to already be employed. Even if that is McDonald's. McDonald's does have a cybersecurity team, so you find a way to get a hold of somebody there and just say, "Hey, teach me, show me." Most of the cybersecurity people will take an opportunity to teach someone internal about the process just right away. So, back to the certifications, though. What cert do you see as just the go-to confidence level for you when it comes to an entry-level position? What really stands out?
So personally, I like to see typically two certifications. Either Security Plus or SCCP. Either one. That's which vendor do you prefer? Do you prefer CompTIA? Do you prefer ICS squared? Whichever flavor you prefer, go that route. And then I like to see kind of what we were talking about that led all this up. Something that shows that you understand a little bit more. AWS. Fundamentals, Azure fundamentals, that AZ900 or AWS CCP. It kind of just gives you that introduction level of this is what cloud. Because ultimately, whether you're in an organization that is still all on prem or you're in a very advanced, mature, fully cloud environment, we're all moving that direction one way or another. Whether you're using SaaS solutions for tools or you're moving everything to the cloud, that's the way we're going. Everyone has, either Google Mail or Office 365. You know, that's your first kind of toe in the door into that cloud environment before you kind of start moving everything else into that environment. So, having that basic, this is how security works foundation, and then layering on, you know, this is how cloud works, or this is how the type of tools that I'm going to be using in the box that I'm going to play in works. If you're going to do a GRC job, there are plenty of really great GRC focused certifications out there. There are great tool focused certifications. OneTrust has a wonderful platform and certification program that teaches you how to do GRC using their tool set. There's GRC Professional that literally teaches you, all the things that you need to know for GRC. You know, we have some questions like, CISP or masters. I don't think it's really an either or. It's a know where you're at and where you're going. What does the you know companies and vendors that you want to go pursue value? Um, you will never go wrong having a CISP. You know, that's kind of the big checkbox that, you know, it plays well with everyone. Um, a
Yeah.
master's degree really kind of depends on what level do you want to work. Are you looking at potentially going into more management leadership roles? Well, then maybe that uh, degree might be a little more towards what you want. If you kind of really want to go towards, you know, more technical, maybe you don't do CISP at all. Maybe you do CASP or you do GSEC and go down that route and kind of go more technical that direction. So it kind of sits down to where do you want to be, what do you want to do, and how do you align your education as a whole towards that. Whether and you can do both at the same time. A lot of master programs, as you go through that program, really sets you up well for, you know, that CASP or that CISP because it all aligns to that same kind of management concept. They're teaching you the frameworks, they're teaching you the management decisions, they're teaching you the business side of the organization. So that kind of follows through where they're it's not an either or, they're very much parallel tracks.
Yeah, great question there, Dennis. For me in particular, the CISSP early on in my career, in order to receive a management position, the expectation was that managers of the cybersecurity program had CISSP because that's what our customers were expecting and that's what we were communicating outwardly. So that's what led me initially there. I started with my master's degree first, and that was really my just wanting to get it, wanting to do it, and having it, and that I'm not sure has made a big difference. The only practical thing I can say that my master's degree offered me was technical writing. That has been the thing that I use over and over and over again. So, CISSP will get you the qualification of you can move into management in most places. With that, some places have that as, hey, without this, you can't. But the benefit of the master's degree is that you develop a formal writing technique. And that is something that, especially as you move up and do all kinds of different things, technical writing is extremely important. There is a lot of really, really great comments here. I wanted to touch on the, you know, cloud certifications versus security specific certifications. My initial advice is to go cloud first because, like Josh mentioned, no matter who you are, you're either moving that way, you've got half a foot in the door, or you're all the way there in the cloud. And as a result, there's this gap in the sense of certified individuals, whether they be the architects or not. And that can be a very, very challenging thing um, to fill cloud specific positions. So it may not necessarily get you in from an entry level position. It may make you more attractive, and that is my opinion. Is that having the uh, cloud specific, whether it's AWS or Azure, and I keep focusing on AWS and Azure because they're the two largest cloud providers out there. There are a lot of other ones, but AWS and Azure gives you the very, very specific foundations for those platforms themselves. And so it is a um, certification that can better be aligned to an organization that may be looking at your resume. It is one of those things that can help set you apart up aside from just a security specific certification, because most organizations that I know have some sort of cloud requirement, and they are constantly trying to train up people. And when they bring in new people, they've got to reintroduce them to the cloud and things. And so when I was talking about shortening that runway, um, those cloud specific certifications can really help in a lot of organizations shorten that runway. And that is what I think we're always trying to advise on, right, Josh? Is how do we help people get in? Because I don't have a million positions that I can fill that I can just be like, great, everybody come. So we're trying to make sure that not only we can get those who are eager in, but that we can get those eager people the skills and education to be successful. So, stepping up just a little bit from entry level, is there anything that you would see at like a 2 year plus experience position, that uh, one certification or the other might help more? Or what do you generally see on resumes for 2 year, 3 year plus cybersecurity professionals?
So I'm one of those people. I want to see continued growth. You know, I want to see that you started at entry level, and whether that be just with Security Plus or a cloud cert, or you have a associate's degree or a bachelor's degree, and a cert here or there. I want to see where you've gone from, where you're going. Are you working on your degree, finishing your degree? Are you working on your next level degree, your master's degree? Are you pursuing, continuing education in the field? And that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be a certification, but show me that you're taking courses. Show me that you're, making yourself more professional. That way, you can actually see growth. A cert, and this is one of my big kind of rants about certifications is they're a snapshot in time. I know on this date and time, you knew, approximately 70 to 80% of this material. I do not know what you know today. You might have had a CISP from 10 years ago and you pencil whip all your CPEs. You tune into the webcast and get your certificate attendant and turn it in, and you really haven't done anything with it. I've had folks that have interviewed with me for, a tier two SOC position with a master's in information assurance and CISP, and I ask a question as simple as, tell me about a cybersecurity framework and regulation that you know, and how does that tie back to being a SOC analyst? And I get a completely blank stare, like I'm talking complete Greek. Now I know that's 50% of your master's in information assurance is cybersecurity regulations and requirements. I know it's 26% of the CISP. If you can't spit out to me, NIST, HIPAA, SOC 2, SOX, GLIBA, FERPA, something, then obviously, that's a red flag to me that, yeah, you're basically a paper tiger. So show me that you have more than just a piece of paper. Show me that continued growth and how you're actually executing what that certification means.
That's really great. There's a lot of elements of being certified and needing CPE, and honestly, at the end of the day, in this industry, and I'm sure most technical industries, the shifts in technologies and what's available and how it's adopted just requires a constant level of learning something new. Excuse me, it can be exhausting, right? But it's part of the territory of what has to happen. Now I know at the end of the day, people are usually like, I do need to make sure that I can get a job, so I can pay the bills, feed the family, do those various things. And there is some people that are also like, hey, yes, I need that, and I'm really passionate about the cybersecurity stuff. And there's some people that are like, hey, there's a lot of money in cybersecurity. And all of those are appropriate ways for getting into cybersecurity. Um, but you will succeed the most by continuing your learning tracks in various areas. I I can say the CISP for me, I probably got most of the domains, but there was the application security domain that was my weakest domain, and so as a result, I got CISP certified without being really strong in that. But as a result, I have intentionally tried to pick up and learn more and more about application security. What's actually effective in organizations? Because the biggest thing with these certifications is it's not necessarily a learning track for, hey, go into company A and here's how you build a roadmap, and here's what this position is going to require in the first 90 days, because that differs and it requires thought process. So always be learning is definitely one of those things. And Michael had a good question here. Is there a specific amount of years experience where certifications no longer matter, or are certs just kind of always a must? Curious your take on that, Josh.
I think it really depends on your industry. Like where where are you serving your cybersecurity work to? Um, you're going to see a lot of organizations that go, if you want to be a, senior manager, director, a CISO, a CIO, they're going to want you to have kind of a top tier certification, and they're going to want you to have a master's degree. There's other organizations, largely based off of size or what they're focusing in, that aren't going to care. I have had folks that work for me that have a high school diploma, a CISP, and half a dozen other certifications, and they do great work right alongside somebody who has a master's degree and Security Plus and a few Nitnoid uh, vendor-based certifications. A lot of it's going to be, what's your reputation? What do you personally bring to the table? You know, the check boxes of certifications or degrees largely affect more of your HR recruiting folks who are going to, do filtering based off of checkbox requirements. And then they're going to kind of tie in on the back end when you start going to look at compensation. You know, someone who's got a master's degree in CISP and, a GSE and, a PMP is likely going to be able to be positioned to get paid a little bit more or a lot of bit more than someone who's got a high school diploma and, Security Plus and, half a dozen other certifications. And that's just, kind of the HR side of the house where they have to justify how much they pay you. Whether I agree with that or not is kind of neither here nor there. It's just that's the way the system is now. So understanding the game that you're playing matters.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I will say, Michael, that I have had a couple of different shifts in my role and expectations. So I'm in consulting now as a vCISO, and the certifications really are on paper and marketing valuable to my customers, right? So they can see without having to ask for my resume and get really in depth. They can see, hey, somebody else has vouched that I have the skills necessary to do this job in a way. And so that can be the biggest benefit long term in your career, is what it means for those outside of the industry, and what it kind of speaks to them, right? If there is a bachelor's or master's degree out there, and doesn't matter what it's in, by simply possessing something that a different body has certified that you have the knowledge that qualifies you for this, people outside can go, oh, I can trust that. Not to compare to like lawyers or anything like that, but that's kind of part of the process, that why you trust a lawyer is a lawyer and is qualified to be a lawyer is because there was a body that certified that they knew the knowledge by going to law school, and then there was another body that certified that they passed the exam, proving proving that knowledge, and boom, that got them in, and now they are constantly developing, refining their craft, focusing on a specific industry or type of law, and that's much the same way that cybersecurity can work. And again, those are like foundational, right, for the later years of your career to basically be like, somebody else already certified me way back that I can do this. It's not even a conversation, much like Josh was saying, just kind of helps make sure the doors stay open the longer you go throughout your career. I will say, in particular, I've sat for a couple certifications lately, later in my career, by actually having the experience that ties to the certification. Those certifications are easy, right? And then I can stack the deck and be like, great, you know, I may not have necessarily learned something new, but I have at least picked up some additional. Oh, hello! Got a naked kid that just walked in. Hold on.
So I'll kind of pick up on that. You know, he said about just having experience. I've done quite a few of like CompTIA's beta exams where you walk in and you're taking the exam cold. There's no study material for it. You either kind of know it or you don't, and that's a way to kind of validate the information that you know is the information that you know. You have actual, uh, no kidding, validation from a third party that says, "I know cloud." This body has said, "Yes, Josh does in fact know cloud." Welcome back,
Yep,
Parker.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I love having the kiddos around. Running in naked while I'm on a live stream. That's a new one. Um, the area I wanted to touch on, based on that HR comment that you kind of made, and maybe give some insider tips, so to speak. Those certifications and degrees are a point of measurement. They absolutely are. And like Josh said, whether we agree with them or not, agencies and groups outside of security don't know the value. They don't know it, and they're not constantly asking and wanting to know. They want somebody else to have done the certifying work to let them know, oh, somebody else has vouched for them that they meet these qualifications, and absolutely they can play a very important role of determining pay. And in particular, the state of Colorado, for government agencies, has this new Equal Pay Act. Now, I'm not an expert on it by any means, but things like formal education and certification allow space to be potentially paid more than a colleague who doesn't have those certifications, and they don't use much else other than some other formal education or certification to separate that equal pay, right? So equal pay for equal work is the point. But if you possess more certifications or formal education, that can still be a qualifying factor in that case. And again, not an expert on that law and what it looks like, but I know from the inside that those are some of the markers of, um, it's the same job title, but it's different work because they possess these certifications and skills. And HR is less inclined to listen to my explanation of why you're valuable. And that's one of the frustrating experiences as a hiring manager, to be like, this is literally the most valuable person to this organization, and I will lose them if we can't drum up some cash, which I know it's there, just give it to me. But they have to consider all kinds of different political factors as well, right? Any any experience on that side, going to bat for one of your employees, and just HR being like, they don't have something that we can throw them a bone on.
Yeah, I've definitely had that. I've had that trying to hire somebody. I did a whole lot of interviewing, and we had someone who, on their paper resume, showed as probably the least qualified person. However, they had all the right real world experience. They had all the right, soft skills, the right desire, the right need to want to do the work that made them far better than other people that on paper looked better, that had, associate's degrees and, higher level certifications. And trying to get with HR and we go, no, look, this is the person I want to hire and here's why. And they go, but they don't check these boxes that these other people do. They're more qualified. There are things that are untangible or intangible that make someone qualified for the job. The right attitude, the right, personality, the right ability to, mesh with the team that you're going to be on all matter, that are external to the things that you're going to see on paper. And that's kind of one of the hardest things for a hiring manager to do is say, look, this is the right person. They need to be in this position. I've had someone that I wanted to promote to a manager position, and I got told flat out no. They have no degree whatsoever. They have a low level certification. Like, they're essentially already doing this job. Like, they have the skills that they're able to do the work, but because they don't match the labor categories that are defined by the Department of Labor, and they don't match the rack and stack criteria that Higher Headquarters Corporate has designed, sorry, Josh, you can't move him into that position. You got to find somebody else.
Yeah. Yep, that is one of the elements of why it's important as a manager as well, in my opinion, to make sure you make those investments in training for your team. Now it's up to them to go take the opportunities and get after it. And there's two-way street in a lot of that, right? But at the end of the day, that's part of where I took particular I guess responsibility to my team to push them into some of those things, especially knowing the politics of like, hey, I'm gonna go to bat for you no matter what, right? I see your value, but if you can put some of these things on paper, my ammunition's a little bit larger caliber, so to speak, and helps me hit a little bit harder. And that's why you see these certs out there. So sometimes they're not about proving value to the specific industry of cybersecurity. It's really about proving value to those outside of the industry. And that's why this is always a frustrating process, whether you're inside or outside of cybersecurity. Is, Josh and I are sitting here going like, we want you in, we want you in. If you do these things, it makes it easier for us, but it still doesn't guarantee that we can get you in the door, right? And sometimes it's like, and if you don't do these things, we'll still find a way to get you in. We'll do what we can. And then at a certain point, politics are going to beat us out until, we end up being the CEO and can make just decisions like that, right? There's another point here as well that, let's see here. I'm sorry, I butcher names so bad. It's just the white boy in me. So, Madan Mohan is asking about a couple different things about wanting to move into the cybersecurity domain and looking for potentially management positions. So, a lot of different experience on the technical side. So, let's just take a minute to talk about technical people transitioning over into cybersecurity. What matters, Josh? What are you looking for?
So if someone has a really, really strong technical background, and I look at their resume, they've been doing, the bits and bytes day in and day out for the last, in this case, 14 years or so. Um, I'm going to look for them to have some more focus on building up their management skills. Understanding the business piece of it. Nothing's worse than getting someone into a cybersecurity or a management role and they don't understand the business. It's really easy for cybersecurity people to go, the answer is no because security. Well, that's great, but we still have a business that has to run. We still have to make a profit. So understanding how to bridge that. So, management classes, going in, talking, certifications that are not technical focused, your CISA, your CISP, any of your auditing type certifications, the things that are going to, make you start thinking about problems differently. I use a good example of CISP versus CASP. So CISP is absolutely a management exam. It's what would the manager do? When you look at CASP, CASP is a technical exam. What's the technical answer? You know, and you'll get the same question on both exams, and you'll have two different answers based off of how you're framing it. The technical answer for this is do this line of code and you know, you're good to go. CISP answer might be you write a policy that directs you to do this. And that's kind of that shift in focus. So understanding kind of where that goes and doing that project management is kind of where you need to follow. And Jessica made a comment. It's frustrating for people who can't afford certs. Absolutely, certs are not cheap. There are ways to get certs cheaper than other places. I'm a big proponent of people taking beta exams. CompTIA has a great beta program where you either pay like $50 to take the exam, and then the trade-off is that you have to wait 6 months to 9 months to get your results. But if you pass the exam, you have the shiny new certification. If you don't, you have taken the best test prep possible for the exam by taking the exam. Um, that works out really well. CompTIA will sometimes even pay you to take the beta exam. For me personally, I have actually been paid more by CompTIA to take their exams than I have paid to take CompTIA exams. So that is a way to kind of enter that field. Another way is those entry level platform certs, the AWS and the Azure fundamental certifications. They're $100. That's kind of where you go and say, all right, I have this big one over here that kind of checks the most boxes. So you're talking like a you know SSCP or Security Plus, and then I start filtering in some of these smaller ones that show more breadth. Give it
Yep.
yourself a little bit more space that aren't going to break you the bank for a wallet. I could tell you to go get the cloud certification from ICS Squared, and that's going to cost you like $800. Well, for that, I can tell you to go get the Cloud Plus, and then for the same price, you can do Cloud Plus, AWS fundamentals, and Azure fundamentals. And now you have three certifications. And if you already have some uh, CompTIA certifications, now you're starting to do that stacking process where you're building skills. So it's kind of a know where you're going, know what you want to do, and kind of build out that plan. There is a really, really great chart. Can't remember it's like Jeremy something that has a massive amount of all the different certifications, kind of where they stack up. I post it occasionally on my channel, and I'll post it after this, just so people can take a look at it. But it really gives you kind of like a breakdown of if you're in this kind of tower, here are the certs that kind of fall into that, and kind of ranks and racks and stacks them. I don't necessarily always agree with where they rank in the stack, but it gives you that. It gives you links to what that covers, how much it costs, and you can kind of start building out a plan of where you might want to go.
Yeah, that's a really helpful resource, right? It's segmented and kind of covers a lot of different domains and what potential certifications at what levels might be beneficial. The biggest thing, for me as well, being able to afford certifications and things like that. That was a struggle early on in my career, right? Because I am working full time and kids and just life in general, and I'm trying to make different investments in myself, but certain economic factors play a huge role in the availability of time. Sure, we all have the same 24 hours, but we all don't have the same access to the 24 hours because there are different hurdles to get through, whether it be commuting, even having to rely on bus schedules that add extra time, and detract from different things, and not having access to the internet or different things like that. So it is really important for me to take that into consideration of there is an investment that has to be made to get in to a certification, and get an education and different things. And it's not always for a lack of want that people don't necessarily get those things. And uh, that's something that one of my first certifications was paid for by my employer because I asked, and had to really prove why I felt it was necessary, and that's what kind of really started this process of me being able to get certifications and then open more doors, and then I'm able to pay for my own certifications now without that being a hurdle. So um, my perspective, especially for entry level positions, I don't want to put a qualifier of having something that requires that you have a source of income in order to achieve, because you are applying for a source of income. And especially in entry level positions, that's just a huge thing that rubs me the wrong way, that's a barrier that people can put on their positions for actual entry level positions, that hey, got to have security plus or got to have these different things, because it's such a big burden to put on somebody who's looking for a job, right, and just trying to get into work. And that's also why I think it's critical that all the cybersecurity managers out there have a budget for certifications and training for your staff, because once you get them in the door, you should be able to provide them the access to advance their careers, and hopefully that advancement comes with you in your organization, right? But if you're not helping advance their careers through investments in those different things, like you're doing your team a disservice. You're doing the industry a disservice, really. So um, there is one last question here I want to get to for Richard, and then we'll kind of wrap this up a little bit. So. Um, Oh, actually, Richard's just quoting somebody else's question here. So I love it. This depends on hiring manager and their ability to influence a hiring. So a specific amount of years experience where certifications no longer matter. We were covering that earlier, and I believe that Josh touched on that as well, of what matters, and we went into depth on that. But any more to add to that particular question of, hey, how long do you go until it's okay to let your CISSP lapse? uh,
Never. You never let
Never.
it lapse ever.
All right. You don't ever want to take that thing again.
Yeah, and I say that as someone who has not taken that yet. Just not been one of the ones that I have gotten around to taking. I have 80 other ones. So, but that is one that everyone I know has always said. Once you get it, you don't ever let it lapse, because it's the test you never want to take again. Um, and I'm kind of one of those people where it's where's your return on investment? A lot of these certifications require maintenance fees. Are you getting any value of this? No, you're not. Don't renew it. Don't pursue the CPEs. You know, understand that that costs money, and your money is valuable. Your time is valuable. Doing all that continuing education for a cert that's not getting you any return on that investment, that's just not a wise decision for yourself or for your family, because that's going to take time away from doing the things that you want to do outside of that, or pursuing a degree, certification, training, or hobby that is more aligned with what your goal is. you know do I really need to keep up a ethical hacking certification where I want nothing to do with pen test anymore? I did that, don't want to do that again. Maybe I don't need to keep up paying the $80 a year to you know EC Council to keep that certification current, because it's not in the track that I want to go. If you
Yeah.
want to do that, great. If you don't, understand that that's a trade off.
Failed the CISSP 2 times before actually passing it. That exam is designed to make you hurt, I believe. So have to agree with that sentiment of don't let it lapse. There are some that I have let lapse. My A+ certification. I got to a point in my career where I didn't need to make sure that I renewed it and put in the effort to track my CPEs and things for it. So there are some that may fall off the radar like that. Josh, there's one additional question here, if you're up for it, from Adlin, wanting to know: continue finishing my degree, or uh, try to get work experience and then, or while finishing the degree. So let me
So,
let me get it a better summary, because yeah, it does cut off the long ones there. Essentially, get the degree first and then go for the job, or be working and getting a degree at the same time.
so I always say that this is kind of a three-legged stool. Education, experience, and certification. If one leg is significantly shorter than the other, your stool is going to wobble and you're not going to be real successful. Um, if I have to choose between job experience and getting a degree, I'm going to tell you job experience first. Continue to get the degree, because getting the degree is going to open up those doors later down the road. You know, it's going to be the thing that is a delineator one way or another between who do I hire between these three people, all other factors being equal. Do I get the person who, everything else being equal, one has a degree and one doesn't? Well, maybe that's a deciding factor. Um, if I have someone who has a degree and certifications but no experience, and someone who has experience and certification and is working towards a degree, I might be more inclined to hire the person who has experience, certification, and working towards a degree than the person who has a degree and certification. It's always going to be kind of a mix between those three things. No one thing is inherently more important than the other. It's what's going to be the best mix of those things that makes you stand out compared to your peers.
Of that, my experience was I was working while getting my degree. So that's my perspective. That the work just had to happen for me. I didn't have a choice, right? I couldn't pick between spending you know any amount of time not working, um, and and then also doing school. So I put off school initially and then ended up picking it up, you know, at some point in the middle of my career of getting a degree while I was working. So it's really dependent on your situation. If you can't afford to not be working, um, you could do both. Not everybody can. I'm saying you in the sense of you're asking the question, and that leads me to believe you believe you're capable of doing both. So I would then have to believe that you are capable of doing both in that situation. So the biggest thing, and I'll leave you with this takeaway, everyone, is the end of the day, whether it's certifications, experience, or a really great resume, the most important thing in this industry and breaking into it is getting connected with people, real people, and engaging and interacting with them, because at least in my experience, most, if not all, my jobs and promotions and things like that have come from the people that I know, not the things that I know. And that can be a real differentiator for you. So if you see opportunities to engage with cybersecurity professionals, as much as it is a huge industry, we can be really close knit. Of like, if we know you, we know you, and we're gonna support you, help you get in, give you recommendations, spend time. One of the biggest things I know Josh and a lot of other leaders in this space do is give their time. They love to give time. So if you ask for it, if you show desire, we're here to help, right? People are really going to be what ends up changing the game for you. Um, and curious, Josh, if you've got any closing comments on the topic.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right on target. The math is that 70% of all jobs that are out there that are open, you will never see an ad for ever. It's all filled through networking. It's you have to know somebody to get in. And every job I've had since I retired from the military has been because I knew somebody who recommended me, put their name and reputation on the line, and said, "No, no, Josh is a good guy. We need to hire him, and this is why." You know, help them understand the why. You know, it's really hard to get entry level jobs. Networking is going to be the thing that typically will get you that first entry level job. It's going to be someone has seen you, they've talked to you, they've seen, what you're putting out there, whether it's on LinkedIn or you're in the community, you're involved in some kind of organization, locally, whether it's, an ISC squared chapter, an as is chapter, AFCEA, whatever, that you're kind of put yourself out there. You've made those connections. You've made a person to person connection. And that's where they're going to go, no, no, I'm going to put my neck on the line for this person. I need them over this person who might be on paper a little more qualified.
Yep, absolutely. Well, thanks again for your time, Josh. Drop the link to your fundraiser for the October Purple Beard competition you've got going on. I'd love to support it, take a look at it, and join you in that effort. And everyone who asked some great questions, thank you so much. Reach out. Feel free to stay connected. We'll certainly do some more of these, but I appreciate everyone's time, and you all have a great day.